Hi there, I'm nicodehaan, and welcome to Living a Primal Lifestyle, where we explore a return to a more balanced and natural wild world.
To recover our natural health and regain our rights and freedoms. And I'm Ellen Dehaan.
And it's a beautiful day in Durango, Colorado. Right now it's 50 degrees, going up to about 63, 64, something like that. We're into the late fall pattern.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice. It's a little chilly out there, but we kind of like that, so it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Living a Primal Lifestyle. Right now, we're not producing anything on Living a Primal Lifestyle because we've been blocked.
We've been blocked for posting.
Yeah, until December 31st. So not until the new year will we be on there. But we have it on my channel, nicodehaan. It's at nicodehaan@mac.com. You should be able to find us all at Mac. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I signed it up a long time ago. Anyway, please hit the notification bell, the
like
button
the
to help our channel
subscribe.
grow. Yeah, I'm all being thrown off by all this.
Technological shenanigans.
Yeah, I would say that's it. Okay. So anyway, all the topics for today's show are in the show notes listed below in the description, so you can follow along and do your own research. If you supplement with your diet with natural vitamins and minerals, we highly recommend Mother Earth Labs. You can hit the notification, the link below the show notes, and maximize your nutrition with two of their products that we use, Humic and Fulvic, and essential multivitamins. Now, these two formulas give you all the essential vitamins, minerals, and amino acids required for a healthy immune system, and with the ability for your body to access them and also to detox at the same time, which is so important. They also make a great selection of other products that may be of interest to you. So I guess we should start out saying that we've been blocked for a while, and it's kind of disheartening because most of the stuff that, what we really do is we take the news, that's mainstream news, and we kind of give our little opinion on it, but we always ask you to make up your own mind. And most of these links are mainstream. A lot of the videos are on YouTube and still on YouTube, and yet they still block us.
So we're perplexed.
We're perplexed, and I'm also writing them and
we're going to see if we can straighten it out.
So anyway, I wanted to start off by saying I have 4 videos in the description, which we're not going to discuss because of this happening, but I think they're important. They're on YouTube, so I don't see any reason why, and they're not blocked, so I don't understand it. But
anyway, take a look at the videos.
Exactly.
They provide a lot of kind of up-to-date, cutting-edge information on what's going on and discoveries that are being made and conversations about what's happening.
Exactly. So we'll leave it there. Okay, let's go to the first link. PayPal says policy to find customers for misinformation was an error.
Yeah, this one really threw people for a loop.
Yeah.
I mean, platforms that have nothing whatsoever to do with content or your use of a particular platform are suddenly maybe following along the lines of YouTube and saying, well, we're going to take you off. And PayPal was
it said on Monday that PayPal will not find users for misinformation on an earlier policy update that said customers could have to pay $2,500 in damages was sent in error.
Yeah, so in other words, somebody at PayPal published a policy that said if they determine that you're using your PayPal funds for something related to what they call, quote, misinformation, close quote, then you were going to get fined. And guess what happened?
The stock market went.
They lost
6%, right?
Almost 6%,
which is huge for
of
PayPal.
their stock value. So,
according to several media reports last week, PayPal had published a policy update prohibiting customers from using its services for activities identified as sending, posting, or publication of any messages, content, or materials promoting misinformation. Now, this policy really covered social media.
Well, I don't know what it covered.
Well, it looked like they were going to scour Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube, and if you had some information there that they didn't like, they could fine you.
Yeah, but clearly there's no relationship between using PayPal, which is a platform for conveying payment for services or merchandise. I don't know what that has to do with anything on your social media. So the spokesperson for the company said, quote, PayPal is not fining people for misinformation, and this language was never intended to be inserted in our policy. We're sorry for the confusion this has caused.
And you wonder if somebody hacked it, whether they put it in there on purpose as a policy and then decided to take it down.
Like
because
testing the waters.
Yeah, testing the waters. Who knows?
Well, PayPal's former president, David Marcus, slammed the policy in a tweet, saying that the new policy goes against everything I believe in. He said, a private company now gets to decide to take your money if you say something they disagree with. That's insanity.
And you wonder how secure a company, if this was a hack, how secure is PayPal with your money if somebody can just insert this in their policy? Well, that's not them.
It's very, very strange.
It's just mind-boggling.
I mean, it just, for a policy to come out, you have to think a whole bunch of people actually reviewed things before it went out. So if they're
dealing with your money.
Yeah, well,
this is really careless.
First of all, it doesn't seem relevant to PayPal whatsoever. It doesn't seem appropriate for them to be even thinking about it or discussing it behind closed doors, for that matter, and for it to get out in a policy and then them have to turn around. Now, then you have to wonder, oh, whoops, our stock plunged 6%. We better withdraw that.
Yeah. So we don't know, of course. Make up your own mind.
Yeah, but the bottom line is that PayPal is not implementing any kind of a penalty policy.
But we know that other, things like Facebook, we know have been censoring things. Certainly YouTube has been doing that. We want to stay on YouTube because that's where most of our followers are. And it's a good way to get out information. But if this keeps happening to us, as far as a restriction, we're going to look at other platforms like Odyssey maybe to get our information out.
I have to do something.
We don't have that many subscribers. I've got more subscribers on my channel than we do on the Primal Lifestyle. Right. So I don't see this as a big threat, if it was even a threat, which it's not.
And the suspension was from last February.
Well, yeah, they looked at 3 videos in the last month from last February and deleted those, and they said it was misinformation. And all we did was really quote things on YouTube that are not,
papers that have
still
been
up.
published.
Yeah, so it's mind-blowing.
Well, anyway, we're done with that.
Yeah, okay. So the next one is a potentially cancer-causing chemical is spraying on much of America's produce. And how high is the exposure near you? So this comes from the giant Monsanto that introduced glyphosate.
Glyphosate.
Glyphosate in the product Roundup, and that was introduced in 1974. It was
1974.
1974, and Bayer acquired Monsanto in 2018.
And we've talked about glyphosate before.
Yeah, it's one of the most widely used chemical weed killers in human history because of genetic engineering. And you've got to understand this because they're not selecting. You're not going out there and selecting weeds. This is made for farmers to spray everything.
All the food,
and
everything. All the weeds.
And it's made so it just kills the weeds, but it doesn't kill the other products, which is the food. But the product is on that food.
And it's absorbed by the food.
It's absorbed by the food.
Yes.
So the EPA safety limits for glyphosate exposure. Glyphosate for exposure from food are twice the levels allowed in the European Union. Its runoff is recognized by the agency as a drinking water contamination or contaminant at levels that correspond to approximately 1 gallon of Roundup in an Olympic-sized pool. That's according to NBC.
NBC News calculations. And much of the debate about the glyphosate health implications revolves around a potential link to non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And in a 2019 analysis conducted by the former EPA Science Review Board members indicated there was a compelling link to the disease. And several peer-reviewed studies have also suggested that herbicides containing glyphosate may disrupt hormones and alter the gut microbiome.
Yeah, so in 2015, the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer said glyphosate was probably cancerous to humans, kicking off a wave of lawsuits that cost Bayer over $10 billion. That's a lot of change.
Yeah, it's very interesting because as a result of all these lawsuits, Bayer has said that next year, I think it's starting next year, Bayer plans to replace glyphosate in some versions of Roundup by next year. The company said in its statement the move was made, quote, exclusively to manage litigation risk in the U.S. and not because of any safety concerns.
Yeah, they're not concerned with our health at all, are they?
Well,
glyphosate use in the U.S. has skyrocketed since 1996. This was the year that Monsanto introduced genetically engineered seeds that could survive being sprayed. So they genetically altered the seeds. This is the food, again, that they're planting, which is mostly corn and soy.
Well, it says almost
and wheat.
90% of the corn, cotton, and soybean crops are modified to be tolerant to glyphosate and other chemical treatments used by farmers.
Now, I'm thinking in my head here, now are we tolerating this? So if we're eating the corn and the soybeans and whatever else they're using this on, is our body going to tolerate this?
Well,
it seems not.
Well, we don't really know yet. I think it's been a number of years, but there haven't really been a lot of studies, and
well,
only
there was
recently,
one in 2017.
Yeah, fairly recently. 2017 study from researchers at the University of California, San Diego, showed that the amount of glyphosate in urine samples taken from a group of 100 adults rose between 1993 and 2016.
Yeah, glyphosate residues have also been detected in the air in rain samples, according to a study of the University of Minnesota. Additionally, 2 reports by organic advocacy groups found glyphosate in food products, including cereals, cookies, crackers, and sandwich bread.
Yeah, a National Health Survey that was released in June, this past June, by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, observed detectable levels of glyphosate in 80% of the urine samples that were tested. Now, we don't know how many that was, but
no. There was a researcher at King's College in London who was researching the health effects of the environmental contaminations for more than a decade, has questioned whether the current safety thresholds are too high.
In other words, is it too much that they're allowing into the...
Yeah, his own research found that glyphosate can induce DNA damage and changes in liver metabolism at doses up to 100 times lower than the permitted levels.
Oh boy. Oh boy. He added that combining glyphosate with the other ingredients and herbicides can lead the final product to be more toxic than its active ingredient alone.
Yeah, the EPA, they conducted in 2020, concluded that glyphosate posed no risk to human health and was not likely to cause cancer.
But a federal appeals court rejected that determination this past June, stating that the EPA did not adequately assess the risks to endangered species and human health. The court also pointed out inconsistencies in the agency's 2016 evaluation of potential links to non-Hodgkin lymphoma. So the EPA then withdrew its decision just in September.
Yeah, the latest news really is that Bayer plans to replace glyphosate in several versions of the Roundup. And they made that statement that you mentioned earlier that it was because of litigation risk, not because of any concerns for health.
That's kind of. It says it's interesting because just historically, when it comes to residue in food, EPA has said that traces are fine as long as the traces don't exceed its safety thresholds. But environmental and organic advocates note these thresholds have increased in the past 2 decades. In 2013, following a Monsanto petition, the EPA drastically raised the permitted levels of glyphosate residues on certain foods, doubling the allowable limit for oilseeds and raising it to more than 15 times its previous level for sweet potatoes and carrots. So, glyphosate is we've reported on it previously over the years, and it's just not good stuff, genetically modified food
Especially the ones that they use in agriculture. I mean, if you're just doing the weeds around your yard, it might not impact too much. It still gets in the runoff a little bit. So that's
a little spot spray is probably
it's a lot different than going and spraying everything because the
fields.
seeds have a genetically modification in there, so it won't be harmed. So, and that in itself makes me think, okay, I'm giving you some poison, but I've also put some genetically modified things in there, so the poison will be hidden. So that's the way I see it. Anyway, make up your own mind. We always say that, okay? But there is good news on the horizon, folks.
Well, there's because cancer research has been going on for decades, probably at least 75 years.
As long as I've been alive,
since the
that's
50s.
78 years.
Yeah, since I don't know, the 40s, the 50s, whatever. I don't know when they started cancer research. But it just seems to me when you're pouring gazillion dollars into research for something should have been found by now.
Well, it's a big industry, and you're making a lot of money off of it.
Well,
that's always a concern
that could
for
be
me.
the problem. Well, so now we're looking. There's another avenue of investigation for cancer cures.
Well, here it is. Cancer vaccine could be available before 2030, says scientists that are behind the other shots, let's say.
Yeah, so let's say the husband and wife team who co-founded BioNTech, which is the biotechnology company that partnered with Pfizer to develop an effective messenger RNA. So it has predicted that a cancer vaccine could be widely available within the next decade. They're wanting to use mRNA technology to treat cancer.
Right. And if you're looking at those 4 videos, you are understanding now why we have concerns about this.
Let's keep going here.
Yes, we feel that a cure for cancer or the changing of cancer patients' lives is in our grasp, says the professor.
Yeah.
During an interview.
Let's see. And he says he believes it will happen definitely before 2030. So again, it's within our grasp. We feel there's a cure. We hope that a vaccine currently in development would train the body to recognize and attack cancers using mRNA technology. And the goal that we have, he says, is that we can use the individualized vaccine approach to ensure that directly after surgery, patients receive a personalized, individualized vaccine, and we induce an immune response so that
the T cells
I
in
think
the
it's
body.
So that the T cells in the body of the patient can screen the body for remaining tumor cells and ideally eliminate the tumor cells. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it sounds great. If the vaccine could do that, it's going to be looking for these T cells. If they find them, it's just going to remove it and nothing else.
Well, it says so now BioNTech was originally before all the other stuff happened, they were focused on developing mRNA-based technologies for a patient-specific approach to cancer treatment, according to the New York Times. And so he was asked in the interview whether there was still a chance that the cancer vaccine wouldn't work.
I don't think so, he said. Everything we have learned about the immune system, about what we have achieved with cancer vaccines shows in principle the clear activity. We can induce those killer T cells and we can direct them.
Yeah, so I don't think so. In principle, it's still early in the process.
Yeah.
However, it's interesting to know that that's out there being investigated, and it remains to be seen how that goes. The one thing that kind of raises a red flag for me was when they say we can direct them, because Mother Nature doesn't always turn out the way you think it will.
It hasn't so far.
And it never has.
Right.
Right. So
and we're not just talking about the movies. We're talking about real life here. And I think the last 3 or 4 years kind of indicate that. As far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, whatever. The point is that thinking that you have control over anything in nature, which tends to mutate, it tends to evolve. It's a living cycle.
Yeah.
kind of
Well,
evolution.
just the statements
Interesting.
that were made in the beginning of the things that we went through the last few years, and then slowly but surely the weakening of their statements over
Let's
the years
move on.
has got me
Yeah,
you
well,
know, it's got
yeah,
me
you don't
just
know whether
doubting everything.
well, yeah, I guess what it comes down to is this. There's a lot of research, a lot of trials, a lot of investigation to be done.
Yeah, but most of the investigations is being done by the companies themselves.
Yeah,
They-
and that's the way it is. So,
Yeah, which
But-
is very, very disturbing because in the old days, it used to be there was independent groups, independent labs making these things. The independent labs now are kind of the enemies of
well, I don't
the
even know.
large
Are there any
companies.
left?
I don't know.
All right.
Really, that's a good question.
The point of this was that there is a group working on possible ways of attacking cancer organically through the mRNA vaccines, and so we'll see what happens. With
I
that.
would like to see the scope of this whole thing changing to what actually is causing this. And we know it's probably the chemicals
okay.
and all the food, and these are the things that are causing the cancer, because cancer was very low on the totem pole before, let's say, the 1800s.
Right, and
And
probably
that's-
later than that even.
Maybe so, but
Yeah.
let's say the 1800s is when, maybe 1750 is when the mechanized industry started doing everything to our food, right?
Yeah, and you couldn't get local food, and you were depending on things being shipped in, and,
Right.
and out of season.
Yes.
There's so many things, and the food itself wasn't the same quality. The
No, because
fields-
if you're shipping it across a nation, it's not fresh.
and monoculture has depleted the soil, so you don't get the
All these
the
things are
minerals
involved in
yeah.
this. Remember, before the 1800s, we always ate local food, and our health was much better. Maybe not as good as it was 10,000 years before that.
Well, we didn't
But
live
it's-
as long as we, our grandparents didn't live weren't as quite as healthy or lived quite as long. But as medical techniques evolved, as dental techniques evolved, over even I'd say our great grandparents, but in many cases, if they were living on a farm or in something of that nature, they were living long, healthy lives, eating good food.
And the other side is that today, most of us are living longer than our parents and grandparents.
Yeah, well, that
Not-
had been true for a few generations.
Yes, and that's really because of the cleanliness. We figured out where germs come from, and we do have some drugs and other
Medical
things,
care.
medical care,
Dental care.
and child care, and
Mhm.
all these things have improved.
Mhm.
What hasn't improved is our food.
Yeah, and then,
And also, we're injecting ourselves with all kinds of different chemicals. We're also breathing them. They're in our
well, we're
water.
not injecting ourselves. We're
Other people are.
absorbing.
Yeah,
We're absorbing them
Well,
from
we're also,
the
I
food,
think,
the air, the water.
They're also injecting us. Anyway, so the next article, dietary fiber linked to flare-ups in inflammatory bowel disease. Of course, I had problems with my bowels and my digestive system. I think from like 9 or 10 years old,
Mhm.
all the way up when I started eating cereals, coming to America or Canada at that time. We
And
started
the change in your food.
yeah,
from
the
the-
change in the food from Holland, which
Mhm.
we always fixed bacon and eggs and sausage and eggs. And
Mhm.
a lot of times we had leftovers from the night before was our breakfast. We changed our habits of eating because advertising. And
Well, and efficiency and ease for mom. you know.
sure, I mean, it's a big compelling thing when mom can pour, or not
Put
even
the box
pour,
on
put
the
the box on the table. You can pour it yourself, put the milk and sugar on it, whatever you want.
Mhm.
And then she goes about her business, and by noon she can watch the soap operas. That's the way I see. And not everybody did this, but that's kind of the way I see it. The woman has got her
Well, she
feet
had
up, and
things.
she's more
She had
relaxed.
other things to do,
Yeah,
and so
and of course, then they're forced into the workplace after the 1950s.
Mhm.
So no longer could one income sustain a family. You had to be forced to, at first it was my mother saying, well, I got a part-time job, just a little more income to give us a little bit better living conditions, which it certainly did.
Mhm.
But then all of a sudden, a decade later in the 60s, she was working full-time. And certainly by the time I got married, boom, everybody was working. Most of the women, 90% of them were working.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden
Well,
it was a career.
today it's very, very difficult, if not virtually impossible, to support a family with one income.
Yeah, it's a slave state in a sense.
Jeez, honey.
Well, don't be alarmed.
Don't. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go into this. The National Institutes of Health and other experts recommend dietary fiber for its important health benefits. But
a new study recently published in Gastroenterology suggests that for people living with irritable bowel disease, which is IBD, certain types of dietary fiber can actually worsen the symptoms.
yeah, I wonder which fibers are. I'm thinking the natural fibers in fruit, which our ancestors always ate. The natural fiber that is in muscle tissue from animals and things like that. They don't call that fiber because in the dictionary, fiber is strictly plant food.
Okay.
But there are muscle fibers in meat naturally, but they don't classify them as that.
Yeah, well, the point I think here is that we're talking about grains. And grains,
Yes, we are.
grains have been a problem for a lot of people. Gluten intolerance, gluten allergies. It's been evolving over time, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, and now they have products that say gluten-free, which makes you wonder. Now, the gluten is the glue that puts it all together. So if you're getting a product that's gluten-free, but it's still all together.
Looks like bread.
It looks like bread or whatever it is. It's still together in a compact form. What's holding it together?
Yeah, well,
Some kind of glue.
yeah, something's holding it together. But there are lots of things that you can use to bind things together, like eggs and there's other things. But
eggs are expensive. They're not going to be using that.
I'm saying, I'm not reading the ingredients because I'm not eating any grains. I don't, whether they're labeled gluten free or not. I'm not eating them because
on a regular basis. We have a
adverse...
couple of corn chips now and then, or maybe a taco.
But for some reason that doesn't seem to bother us.
Well, the reason being, these are organically grown in a local area that's not GMO. It makes a big difference. And we don't. It's not even 10% of our diet. It might be like 3% of our diet. It's not every day. It's like once a week, sometimes. Yeah. So it's a big difference between having a staple as the continuous food that you're eating
every single day. We also eat sourdough bread.
Yeah, once in a while.
Pretty much the only bread that we will
ever. Do we do that once a week?
No,
not even. Right? Okay.
But here's the thing the point about sourdough is it's fermented. Yeah. It's soured. Right. It's been treated, and we talk about that all the time about how important it is.
These processes take out the stuff that's
the toxicity that is natural to the.
And it makes sense because if you look at a digestive system of a cow, it has a naturally fermented station in those
stomachs. How many stomachs does it?
I think it has 3 stomachs. It might be 4, but they toss it into one stomach to ferment, and then they put it back in the stomach. They regurgitate it, and they chew it again, and then it goes back and forth until the body says, "Okay, it's okay to use now." That's not.
We only have one stomach.
Yeah.
So what's happening is that it appears that there are gut microbes that are present in people who suffer from IBD that do not digest the fiber.
Right. So fiber is insoluble, so it's not going to be digested. That's the purpose of the side. The whole philosophy behind this: the fiber goes through your body and scrapes your bowels clean. Right. But is that really happening? No, more or less, it's irritating and is such a point that it leaks. Your gut leaks, and these poisons. These toxicities go into your bloodstream, and this causes the whole problem with IBD. So IBS, whatever it's called.
It says that there's a gastroenterologist at Long Island Jewish Forest Hills of Northwell Health in New York told Healthline that the microbiome plays an important role in digestion, including helping to break down food and the synthesis of certain vitamins like vitamin B and vitamin K and essential amino acids.
Yeah, and this, of course, is feeding the bacteria that dissolves your food.
Is in your system and is purposefully in your system.
Yeah, it also plays a crucial role in immune function by acting as a healthy barrier to protect the body from harmful pathogens. So that barrier is a natural barrier in your lining of your gut that prevents the food from getting into your bloodstream and other parts of the body. So it's an important thing to realize that when you have these problems, that gut opens up and these fibers and things can leave the gut into your bloodstream,
Right.
causing
That's
a lot of
where
problems.
that's where you have a problem. So it says he continues to say that fiber intake has been associated with a decreased risk of cardiovascular disease, stroke, diabetes, and may even decrease the risk of colon cancer. But then he says, while fiber aids with digestion and has anti-inflammatory effects in healthy people, researchers found that when particular fibers remain unfermented, they actually cause inflammation and might worsen the symptoms for some.
Unfermented, there's the
There's
key
the
right
key,
there.
right.
Why not ferment it before you use it, like our ancestors did? This is how they actually protected the food, so they had it in the wintertime when it wasn't available and grown anymore. You know, our ancestors found out many, many years ago when there was a food shortage and the animals weren't around, they needed other food. And the fruit doesn't last too long, but these fibers seem to. You know, when you're processing these plants that we've made into food, like avocados and peas and broccoli and things like that, you can preserve them and they last a long time. In the preservation process, that's what's happening, is the fermenting and distilling, and that's what makes it good for you.
Yeah. So get to the treatment that they talk about here.
The study points to, well, you started.
Well, I moved over to describe what it means here, if you would please. Here, just start there.
Okay, some patients with severe IBD can even be candidates for a complete overhaul of their gut microbes with fecal transplant.
So I looked up what's a fecal transplant because
Go
it
ahead.
struck me as an odd term. Well, it seems that a fecal transplant is a procedure that transfers the stool from a donor to the gastrointestinal tract of another person for the purpose of treating a disease or condition. It's also called a fecal microbiota transplant or bacteriotherapy.
So they're taking the bacteria that
That
makes
is
your gut
working.
healthy. That's working to digest these things, and the people recover from that. So new research shows that people with the IBD are at increased risk of flare-ups if they're missing the microbes needed to digest certain fibers and dietary fiber. The other way to do that, of course, is don't eat this stuff.
Yeah, well, it's the fecal transplant is delivered by via a colonoscopy.
Yeah, which is not fun anyway.
Well, anyway, I just wanted to see
Right, so-
if it was what it sounded like.
Yeah. So my cure was going paleo and then later going more carnivore.
And mine was as well.
Yeah, and that's when the problems left. So there's a solution where you can have these transplants, or you can use these in a better form, which is the fermented form. Or you can just stop using these. These are, remember, carbohydrates are non-essential. Your body doesn't need them. Yeah, you can use them, and they're certainly not bad for you if they're not treated with chemicals and they're the right form, and you've maybe got a history of the history of eating these foods, because now your body's used to it. And in our family, we use a lot of sauerkraut and things like that. So I'm used to that. Some people don't like it because it's a sour taste, right? So these are things that we used, and my ability to digest them and not have any problems is because genetically I'm predisposed to, it's all right for my body, right?
Well, the article also mentions that they're trying to develop tests to determine whether a person has the inability to digest these foods or to pass them through as they're supposed to be, and see if they're candidates for some kind of an overhaul of their gut microbiome. So
well,
it's
if you just pay
interesting.
attention, what animals always do is when they go to the bathroom, they check it out, right?
I don't know.
But this is what animals do. We've seen that.
Yeah.
First thing they do, they take a little dump and they sniff it, see if it's okay. And the reason they do that is because they need to know genetically their nose are the reaction in their nose tells them whether it's good or not. And of course, how you go to the bathroom is important too. So if you're having problems, look back in the last 48 hours of what you ate. And if you start doing an elimination diet, you can really
figure out what causes the irritation.
And that's how I figured it out.
Yeah,
when I dropped all these cereals and more bread and stuff like that, my problems were solved. And I go, whoa, wait a minute. It's an important thing, right? Okay, somebody's sending me a message.
Yeah, well.
That's my buddy Mark, Colorado Bigfoot. Yeah.
All right,
okay. So let's go back. The next article.
Now, speaking of things that you put in your body, and that may or may not be good for you.
Scientists and the military want us to eat food made from plastic.
Plastic.
Ooh. When I saw this, I goes, okay, this is the next step, isn't it?
Scientists, a group of scientists are looking toward biodegradation and repurposing plastic. I mean, clearly there's tons and tons and billions of tons of plastic floating around the planet.
Yeah, and they need to get rid of it.
They need to get rid of it.
That's a good way to do it, is eat that stuff, right?
So at a lab at Michigan Technical University, certain bacteria were treated like microbial guinea pigs, chomping down on processed plastic to churn out an edible, protein-rich byproduct. The idea basically is that one day humans could consume this byproduct.
Yeah, so they have these microbes that eat like styrofoam and other plastics, and then what they poop out, I guess, is what they're saying, okay, now we can make this into food because it's gone through the digestive system of a species of some kind.
Well, researchers in Spain discovered an enzyme in waxworm saliva that can degrade polyethylene, which accounts for up to 30% of the daily use plastic. So they're working simultaneously on ways to clean up the plastic and make it, because it doesn't biodegrade. That's the problem.
Yeah, so if it doesn't biodegrade, what makes them think that the biodegrade through the digestive system of a bacteria is going to do the job for
Well, it doesn't biodegrade from the sunlight or from exposure to the elements.
Right.
So there's enzymes that they're looking at that can degrade the plastic.
So using organisms, whether big or small, to do the dirty recycling job is not a novel idea. Scientists have known for some time that mealworms, the larvae of a mealworm beetle, go to ham on.
Also, they like to destroy styrofoam.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So they.
So that was where they discovered the enzymes in waxworm saliva.
So recently, research in Spain discovered that the enzyme in waxworm saliva. So that's what you said earlier, which accounts to about 30% of daily use plastic.
Yeah, well, if you think about it from the researcher says, if you think about it from a molecular level, the components of bacteria are very similar to food we already eat. There's a lot of protein in them. They've got lipids, fats, and vitamins. The product we're producing at the end is very much like a protein powder that's already been processed. What's left over are microbial cells, none of which are alive. You're really just using them for the protein and the lipids they provide.
Remember where plastic comes from.
Where?
Oil.
Petroleum?
Petroleum. Yeah. So just...
well, that's organic, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is organic, yes. But would you drink some nice oil?
Crude oil?
Some
no,
oil,
or gasoline or anything.
Or remember, we had that in our food. The first thing that we used as an oil for baking that was manufactured was cottonseed oil.
And that was...
We certainly don't eat cotton.
No. Well, it's kind of interesting here. It goes on to say that the researchers' team has managed to create small amounts of this protein powder, but no one has yet taste tested it.
Well, I think they should taste test it themselves.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, None of these bacteria are related to any of the bacteria that can make humans sick. We'll see how far that goes.
That's what they say.
Yeah, and the process we're developing kills all the bacteria prior to using them as food, basically cooking or pasteurizing them.
So then the question is, what exactly is left?
Well, it's still plastic. No matter
Well, no, the bacteria they're talking about.
Yeah, but the bacteria has the plastic in it. They're the ones that consume the whole thing. And I don't know. This is very confusing to me. The grand vision is not without challenges, however.
Yeah, currently the chemical pretreatment is energy intensive. So many of these things that they're coming up with to save energy and
Yeah, they cost a lot of energy, but they're gonna figure out how to use less energy, of course.
Yeah, well, that's what they're working on. So they're figuring out ways to provide enough power, potentially through solar panels that are attached to the sides of an all-in-one device. But then there's another obstacle to ensure the product is safe for food consumption and to demonstrate that to the food regulatory agencies. So the researchers are working on that.
We have a big problem with plastic waste, and it's going to take a lot waste. It's going to take a lot of expertise, energy, and effort to come up with solutions. If we can contribute to even a small part of helping to deal with the crisis, it's exciting to be working on something like this. I'm sure from a chemical... Said the researcher. And I'm sure from a research standpoint, it's exciting to see these processes take place. But my recommendation is always to eat real food.
What a concept. I think what this comes down to is, I'm all in favor of trying to find ways to break down the plastic and stop the pollution.
No doubt about that.
So, that's what I don't know about the food.
Could we go back to using, bags that are made of cotton and things like that and carry them into recycling? And,
yeah,
there's a lot of the different ways. Those are maybe energy intensive, but maybe...
if they're reusable,
yeah,
then it's not an issue.
Exactly, yeah. So there are solutions, folks. Okay, these 7 cereals do not qualify as healthy according to the FDA's new criteria. This kind of said to me, whoa, this is something, of course, that I figured out myself, that these cereals aren't that great for you.
Well, here's the thing. In beginning, they proposed a new rule. The FDA proposed a new rule on September 28th, and they said, in order to be considered healthy, quote unquote.
Yes, the products have to align with the FDA updated nutrition fact label and the current dietary guidelines for the Americans, according to the announcement.
Now, they use cereal as an example to detail the new criteria. So for a healthy stamp from the FDA, cereals have to contain 3/4 ounces of whole grains, no more than 1 gram of saturated fats. I assume this means no more than 230 milligrams of sodium and no more than 2.5 grams of added sugars. Yeah, so we have 7 cereals that are listed here as they don't qualify as healthy based on this definition. And some of them kind of surprised me because things like cornflakes, I never thought about as having sugar added to them.
I ate a lot of cornflakes when I was young.
Yeah, and Rice Krispies and
Raisin Bran I always liked.
Special K.
I never liked the honey Cheerios and mini Frosties.
Honey bunches of oats.
But even a cereal called Life and Special K, which were the promoters, the real healthy ones. Yeah. Don't eat cornflakes. The Special K, we got. If you've got problems, use this. So the new guidance was proposed after the White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health, as well as the release of the new national strategy, which aims to end hunger, improve nutrition, and physical activity.
So I'm not sure how qualifying cereals as not healthy is part of the conference on hunger.
Well, remember when they send food to areas that are devastated by hurricanes and things like that.
It's always boxes of cereal.
It's always boxes of cereal because, and it's natural. They don't send, a bunch of cows over there.
No, it's in a box. It doesn't go bad. You can pack it in a carton. It's easy to ship.
Yeah, and you have to refrigerate meat. So why not send the wild animals over there? And the animals can really help in a lot of different situations.
Yeah, but how the heck you're going to get them over there? The cost is so prohibitive.
There you go. It's not about health. It's about the cost, right? Of course. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, it is. Particularly interesting was this morning I was filling out my ballot for the election.
Yes.
For the midterms, and included are a number of propositions for changes to Colorado state law. And one of them had to do with changing the food that was available to kids in schools to make them more nutritious and more healthy and more and contribute more to the well-being of the children. And so I voted yes on that one, but it's just an interesting
They're
process.
going to do it by, you remember, well, my theory has always been, let's take the best chefs in the world and put them in two places, schools and hospitals.
No, hospitals. Oh, my
This
God.
is where we need to give the people best nutrition ever.
Yeah,
Next.
that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah. The next
Okay.
article is dinner time at 5 p.m. ? New research suggests eating early and within a 10-hour window is healthier. Now, I found like a half a dozen of these on our news feed.
Mhm.
I picked this one because the other ones were kind of long and very similar.
Yeah.
But researchers have provided more evidence that eating early in the day might be good for you, and eating all your meals within a 10-hour window can be healthier too. One of the articles that I read prior to this one was talking about, can you skip breakfast?
Mm-hmm.
Can you extend your fast?
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course you can. You can eat whenever you want to. It doesn't
Right.
really make any difference.
But
But eating within a 10-hour window is something that we've really done. In fact, I think it's even shorter because we usually eat breakfast around 8 o'clock
right.
and then we eat dinner around
Now
4.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a 8-hour window.
Right.
And that's normally what we do, and we think that's the best for us. We feel better.
Well, we
that
feel
way.
good. We're not hungry at lunchtime.
Yeah, and then we have a 4 or 5 hour break of a fast where we don't eat anything, and we go to bed on mostly an empty
stomach. Yeah.
So, and that helps in sleep,
Oh.
of course, which is really important.
So it says a reason to eat earlier in the day. Participants who ate meals 4 hours later in the day. This is just interesting stuff.
We're
more hungry. They burned calories at a slower rate, and they had body changes that promoted fat growth, according to a study from researchers at Brigham and Women's Hospital. That's, I believe, in Boston.
So the later you eat, the more your body hangs on to the fat.
Well, and that makes sense because you have less time to process it before you go to bed.
Right.
But it says they did a study and they found that eating 4 hours later made a significant difference for hunger levels, the way we burn calories, and the way we store fat. They had 16 overweight patients eating the exact same meals on 2 schedules. One group ate meals earlier in the day, and the other group ate the meals 4 hours later in the day. So later eating, this is what they found when they finished their study. They gathered blood samples, levels of body temperature, energy expenditure, and samples of body fat tissue. Later eating more than doubled the likelihood of being hungry, the researchers said.
Lowered the levels of the hormone leptin, which is present in making you feel full. And this also relates kind of to if you're eating a lot of really good fat from animals or maybe some fruits and things like that, that you're going to have more of this leptin, this hormone. It
that
rises, which
suppresses hunger.
suppresses the hunger. So we know that we were talking to one of your cohorts in Florida when we were on vacation there, and she mentioned to us that she did a lot of snacking at night and described what she was eating, and it was a lot of carbohydrates. And we suggested to her that, cut the carbohydrates out. And
a week later,
we got a little ding ding and said, well, I have so much energy. I'm not hungry. For a lot of people, this doesn't happen very quickly. Sometimes it takes a couple of weeks. I've even had people say it takes 3 months to get through the whole program. Your body starts to normalize a little bit more.
Yeah, because a lot of these carbohydrates are addictive and your body craves them.
Yeah, I always think of it from an evolutionary standpoint because it doesn't really make sense for you to be ravenously hungry after a few hours of eating something. It just in the real world of being a hunter or even a gatherer, if you're famished, you're probably not going to make really good decisions.
You can't think straight.
How quiet are you going to be and stealthy to hunt that animal if your brain is going crazy? I need to eat. I've felt that myself before we switched our diet 15 or 16 years ago. It's made a huge difference the way we eat now, not only to how we feel, mentally how we feel, how we conduct our eating habits during the day. We're not hungry. We can eat anytime we want to. We're never at a point where it's famished, even if we skip the whole day. We could say to ourselves, yeah, we didn't eat. Maybe we'll eat in the morning, or let's have something now. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. We're eating the right food. Remember that our body digests protein and fat immediately, where the carbohydrates kind of sit and they kind of ferment in there, and you start burping and things like that. So your body gets rid of really good food very, very quickly. Fat dissolves, goes in your bloodstream.
Doesn't get rid of it; it processes.
Excuse me.
Yeah. All right. So here's the thing of interest to us: we were traveling for 2 weeks, and we went by vehicle.
Right.
So while we're on the road, we would find some place to eat by between 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So that we could, the latest. And then we would have a dinner, and then we would either go to the hotel or we would continue on for another hour or two, whatever, and then check in. Right. So that was fine. When we got to the conference, the first night we ate, it was around 6. Mm-hmm. The second night, it was 8:30 because we were at a dinner.
Right.
The third night, it was also later than normal. What time did we meet for dinner? Around 6:30? And then till we ate?
Yeah, it was like 8:30 or 9 before we got back to the hotel.
Right, right. And then we headed on the road again, and we tried to keep our food around 5-ish,
that's normally
for a couple of days. Yeah. And then mostly we were able to do that.
Well, it really didn't matter because of the change, because we weren't famished. We were never hungry. No, and the food was so good. We were at this crazy hotel at Boca Raton.
The Boca Raton Hotel.
Yeah, which is in Boca Raton, of course.
Yeah,
and
it's
a real high class.
It used to be the spa.
It's a place we'd never go if we had to pay for it ourselves. And it was interesting because just to park the vehicle overnight was $50.
Well, I got to tell you though, we were royally and
it was
amazingly
this is how
pampered,
this is how the other half lives, or the other 10%, I would say.
Irrelevant. Irrelevant.
But it was a great
wonderful
experience, and the food was just amazing. We had a huge trip here. We put 4,700 miles on the
At
FJ.
Least, yeah.
And it was interesting because I got new seats in the FJ, which are Schillman seats from Germany. And they're pricey, but we had decided to keep the vehicle instead of ordering a new Bronco, which we had done. And we waited
still waiting for it.
Yeah, we're still waiting for it. And we canceled that and decided to put a little money in the FJ. It just runs so well, and it's very, very comfortable. Now with these seats, I take one of these rollers with me always because my back would hurt and things, and I would be cracking my back on this roller. And then I go to the hotel and get on the roller, and nothing cracked. Mm-hmm. And I felt so good. And even after we were on the road 15 days, and I just felt so refreshed and so calm. And it was just an enjoyable thing. I went right back to jiu-jitsu without missing a beat. It was just a fantastic thing. So comfort in traveling. And the only thing that really hurt was my knees. And that was because they weren't moving a lot, especially this knee that I don't use. I'm using the accelerator and the brake mostly with the other.
Your right leg.
Yeah, with my right leg, and my left leg had a little
just kind
area.
Of sits there.
It just kind of sits there for 8 hours a day when we were driving.
Well, I think that it points out, just like the article does, that everything is connected, and there are multiple causes and effects that work on us every day. So yes, eating 4 hours earlier contributed to less fat and less all the other good
and now we're going
qualities.
Back to the article, right?
Yeah, and so good qualities and whatever. They also point out in here that
they found firefighters who ate all their meals within 10-hour window significantly increased their bad cholesterol, improved their mental health, and reduced alcohol intake after just to about 3 drinks a week. That's good.
Reduce the alcohol by about 3 drinks.
Right.
Yeah.
So researchers at the Salk Institute at the
Mhm.
University of California, San Diego, tracked 137 San Diego Fire Rescue Department firefighters who were encouraged to follow the Mediterranean diet and used an app to track their diet for 3 months.
Half of them ate meals within the 10-hour window, the other half within a 14-hour window. And the study showed that any shift workers with high blood pressure, blood sugar, or cholesterol could benefit from the simple lifestyle intervention called time restrictive eating.
Yeah, it's not a pill.
It's a healthy habit that can significantly reduce those 3 risks of disease without any side effects. They do point out, on the other hand, that in fact there are other contributing factors to these things. So you really have to, it doesn't hurt a bit to try these different techniques or to take the supplements or to revise your diet to eliminate the carbs for at least temporarily so that you can get your body back in balance again. There are so many things that you can do.
They suggest here that a bigger breakfast, preferably at home, because it's typically healthier than a small lunch to reduce the post-lunch dip. And that post-lunch dip is kind of like the 2 o'clock thing when you get hungry again.
That's because you ate too much sugar at lunch, and exactly. Now you have what they call the sugar crash.
Yeah, so if they choose a window that ends before 8 p.m., they're likely to reduce their evening and nightly alcohol and dessert intake. And I find dessert intake, we had dessert quite a bit on the road, small amounts of chocolate or some ice cream and things like that. If you're eating very, very healthy protein from animals or fish and things like that, you can have a little bit of this stuff and it's not going to hurt you. Mm-hmm. But now just think of if you're eating a lot of carbs, potatoes and pasta and things like that, and now you add more carbs in form of dessert, even chocolate. Mm-hmm. Ice cream, of course, has a lot of fat, but a lot of the ice cream today is low fat.
It's sugar.
And it's more sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So just think about that part, is that you're consuming a lot less carbs. And that's the whole key to this thing, because carbs are pretty much made up food except for maybe fruits, vegetables. I don't think our ancestors really ate. And
but certainly it didn't have the variety of vegetables that
they used them as colorful things. They used them as little seasonings and things like that. They didn't use them as a staple. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And remember that potatoes are indigenous to only one area of the world, which is a high Andes, Peru.
Elevation.
Yeah, and they ate it there because we know that when they use them, they also use them in different form. They usually process them 2 or 3 times before they even ate them. Mm-hmm. And the carbohydrates at high altitude make a big difference, especially if they're fermented.
And potatoes are part of the nightshade family, which is actually poison, so same thing with tomatoes. Yeah. But and the key too, there's something else to think about. If you're on any kind of medication, there can be a reaction between medication and food. Yeah. So it's something also to look at. If you're not feeling well, if you're having rashes or pains or other things that are, your joints are aching, whatever, there are lots of ways of addressing them that actually don't involve drugs or any kind of medical treatment, but rather first look at what you're eating and then go from there. Yeah.
The last article here, DNA from sediments offer insights into the use of plants by humans in the Paleolithic age.
Yeah, this one was pretty interesting because they talked about the many uses of plants, not necessarily, most of them were not food. And well, the first thing they found was that the University of Oslo did a research project, and they extracted and analyzed plant DNA from the sediments of an Armenian cave. About 40,000 to 25,000 years ago, the cave was used as a shelter by humans of the Upper Paleolithic.
Yeah, detailed analysis of the DNA showed that the cave's inhabitants may have used numerous plant species for various purposes, including medicine, dye, or yarn.
Yeah, and they used it as rope. They used it to... it was very interesting. They found in this cave, it's 11 meter deep, 18 meter wide, and 6 meter high cave. It's a site from the Upper Paleolithic in the Republic of Armenia, and the cave sediments show information about human settlement between 39,000 and 24,000 years before the present.
Yeah, although we know that plants played a fundamental role in the lives of prehistoric people beyond serving as food, plants used such as seeds and leaves and fruits and roots are rarely preserved since they are organic and usually decay quickly, which makes it difficult for us to study.
Yep, and in order to be able to provide any information about plant use in the Paleolithic period, the research team was able to extract plant DNA from the cave sediment.
Yeah, and the results of the DNA analysis indicated that the sediments contained a large amount of genetic material from plants during periods of heavy human use of the cave and during periods when people visited the cave less frequently.
So they did attribute the plants to human involvement, because when there were not so many humans, there were not so many plants.
Yeah, so the researchers were able to identify a total of 43 plant orders. All but 5 were suitable for human use according to the study.
Some of the plants have medicinal properties. Others could be used as food, flavoring, or a mosquito repellent.
Yeah, the discovery of DNA from plants that provide dyes or fibers suggests that people in this region use plants to make sewing thread or twine to stir up shell beads, string up shell beads.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. They say, according to the researchers, analyzing the DNA from the sediments is an exciting new tool for studying human behavior in prehistoric times.
Yeah, so that's not to say that they didn't use plants for food. I'm sure
Right.
they did.
Sure.
But I think they used them mostly for flavoring, for colorful things around them, but mostly probably for helping them survive because of clothing and dyeing, for rituals and things like that.
And for medicine.
Yeah. And
There's so many food. What is the food that has the salicylic acid in it? The natural aspirin, birch bark?
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a
I
couple of
believe it
different
is.
ones, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The inner part of the birch bark.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things that we really don't know, but we do know that years ago our eating habits were a lot different because we didn't have the domesticated food, and we certainly didn't have manufactured food.
And you didn't have access to any food outside of your immediate area.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And that concludes the show. So thanks a lot for sticking around. You'll find us on nicodehaan at nicodehaan@mac.com. You can search
On YouTube.
We'll be putting this on Facebook and LinkedIn, and we're going to be doing a little protest on my YouTube channel.
Oh, we're going to do an inquiry.
Yeah, an inquiry.
Find out.
Why is this happening? Because all we're really trying to do is give people information to make up their own mind, and we're not using our own opinions. We're using articles that are established.
They're published.
They're published. They're
The New York Times, the Washington Post.
well, one of the things was, remember, we were actually reading the documents from one of the companies
that had been published.
That had been published under duress. Remember, they wanted these things published 75 years from now.
Right.
They didn't want them published today, but the court ordered them to be published, and we were reading that, and that was taken down. It's very disturbing to me to have this taken down and being censored. And I don't think this is what freedom of speech is all about.
Well, and it's not even what the whole show is about. We're not urging you to do any particular thing, and we're not espousing any particular approach.
We are telling you what we do.
Yeah, and what we find when we do our research.
Yeah. So thanks for sticking around. We'll see you on the next show.
Be
Bye-bye.
well.